We answer the question that all HBCU fans want to know: how many players from an HBCU get drafted in the draft this year? And Gerald Huggins comes on as we end our top 10 list with number one, Markquese Bell. Oh, yeah, it's Locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked on HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum, and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. This season, they have you covered with more odds, props, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And this whole week has been an exciting week because it's the NFL draft week. But no more just saying it's the draft week. We're here with draft day. And I'm here to answer the question that I know every single HBCU fan around the nation, and even my international HBCU fans, shout out to y'all. I know y'all checking us out on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I answered the question that I know you've been wondering for over a year, probably right around this time. Last year, you started being curious. How many HBCU players are going to be drafted in the NFL draft in 2022? I came on here I think maybe either last couple days, somewhere in that range. And I said, you know what? I'm not quite sure. I defined success. I said, I think 5 will be a good success. I came on Locked On NFL and I said, I think 5 to 7 get drafted. But that's just throwing out a range and just kind of the feel, right? Let's actually put the names to the list. It was an interesting, like kind of more a cerebral exercise for me where I had to put players in the categories and say, this guy is, I think, for sure going to get drafted. I think could get drafted. And then as far as some guys who I've heard some name getting thrown around, but I'm not quite sure they actually get drafted. And those are my long shots. Now, I think it's very important before we get too far into this to say, this is not a scout take. This is not a breakdown of film. This is a breakdown of what's been percolating, what's been being said. Now, somebody could come out of the blue, right? Somebody who you're not hearing a lot of buzz about. And I won't say a name, any names, but it could be a person who, it could be me, right? Let's just say me. Well, we didn't even know he was in the draft. I ain't heard nothing about you. And then boom, here I am, 250th pick in the NFL draft. This is not saying that these people are not skilled if they're not on the list. It's saying that this is what I've been hearing as far as interest from teams, names kind of buzzing a little bit, and that's where these names come from. Now, let's get into the exercise. And I'm going to start it off with players that I'm confident about, and that's Markquese Bell, Joshua Williams, James Houston, Jacoby Durant, Ja'Tyre Carter. Those are my 5. It's 15 prospects on this list, 5 on each or in each category. Now, Markquese Bell to me is a guy who has been hyped up. I kind of felt like he had a fall off as far as the hype train went, and now it's back. And y'all know how I feel about him. I never wavered. I didn't. I didn't. So I felt as if this was a guy who has been extremely impactful in his time at Florida A&M. You look at the difference between, and I'm not going to go too far because that is our player, but just the difference between this year and last year, as far as, or 2019 rather, as far as one was a run heavy year, one was a pass heavy year, as far as where he just excelled at. I never wavered. You know, it's like the great Andre Benjamin once said, when my turntables get wobbly, they don't fall. That's me. All right. I stayed consistent and I've been on the Markquese Bell hype train, and we'll hear more about him at the end. Joshua Williams to me is a guy who has had such a great trajectory from being a D2 cornerback who did not, I don't even think he played corner until his senior year in high school, and then leveling up and at the D2 level to be the only guy at a Senior Bowl. Yeah. And him and Ja'Tyre Carter being at the Senior Bowl really solidified it for me, especially Williams being the only D2 guy. It speaks volumes, and he's got the Nagy stamp. Carter, I just spoke about, and I think he had a good showing at the pro day, at the combine. Now, Durant is somebody who could have not gotten drafted because of his size, but I think that 4.3 speed that he showed is going to get him a draft spot. And Houston, I feel good about Houston getting drafted. We talked about him on yesterday's show. If you didn't check that out, make sure you go back and listen to it. I think his versatility gets him drafted. He's the least sure I am of the 5, but he got that top 30 vision, and that put me over the top. Now let's get into the guys that I think could be drafted. And we're going to go with Michael Badajoe, Aqeel Glass, Keenan Forbes, Will Adams, and Ezra Gray. Now, the Badajoe thing is simple. I've heard so much buzz about him recently and just all the connection to these teams. I feel like he's going to go late in the draft. I expect that to happen, and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode when we have him on. And then Aqeel Glass, I feel like with all the hype around HBCUs, an HBCU quarterback has to go. This is gut feeling. A lot of this is gut feeling. I just feel like all the hype, the premier position is going to go as well. Keenan Forbes got a lot of love for his HBCU combine performance, so I could see him going. Will Adams and Ezra Gray. Will Adams has great special teams traits as far as explosiveness. These are things that you take late round flyers on. And then Ezra Gray, he has great special team capability as a returner. My long shots, and I'm not going to talk about them too long, is Deshaun Dixon, D. Anderson, Corey Ramon, Keith Corbin, and then also Marquise McLean. I went with him. And if there was any of these guys who I think were to get drafted, it would be Dixon, because I know that his length will be attractive. Ramon was an interesting one because he got the NFLPA Bowl invite, but I never saw him again. So I was kind of up in the air with how I was going to feel about where I was going to place him. Did I want to place him on the I could see it or the long shot? And the fact that I just never heard any more whispers about teams being interested is the reason I put him on a long shot. Now, it's important to remember that a lot of these guys, when you get to the later rounds, they're not getting the publicity for just having a visit as much as other people. But if I had to go through, so 5 surefire. So we're going with 5. And if I said that's a success, I feel confident that it'll be a surefire success. I think Badajoe gets drafted. I think Aqeel Glass gets drafted. Now, this is when I have to start cutting it down. And I did this once on a podcast that I used to have where I just kind of did it live so that everybody could see my thought process. So I said, forget it. Let's do it again, right? It was fun that time. Let's do it now. I don't think Keenan Forbes gets drafted. I'm gonna say either Will Adams or Ezra Gray. I'm not sure which one it is, but one of them gets drafted. So that will put me at 8. I'm gonna keep it there. I'm gonna say none of my long shots make it, even though D. Anderson is one of the most interesting because he has that LSU history. But I'm gonna go with 8, and that's Bell, Joshua Williams, Carter, Ja'Tyre Carter, Jacoby Durant, James Houston, Michael Badajoe, Aqeel Glass, in either Adams or Gray. I don't see both of them, but one of them, and that's 8. So that's a really successful day. Let me know what you think. Is there somebody that I missed? And if I missed them, make sure you tell me what category they should be in. Or if it was one of these guys who was in a category you felt like he probably could have been higher, or maybe he should have been lower. Let me know in the comments. Y'all have been really killing it in the comment section, and I really do appreciate y'all for that. Now, going forward, we're going to be talking with our guy, Gerald Huggins. We're talking about the top overall player on our top 10 draft eligible HBCU player list. It's been a 2.5-month journey. About to culminate it now. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline, because BetOnline.net is the best place for all of your sports wagering. When I look at BetOnline.net, I look at the versatility that it provides. Now, the NFL draft is tonight. I told you to have you with more odds, props, and lines than ever before. They have you covered for the first round odds. Go to BetOnline.net and bet on how many offensive players, how many defensive players are going to be drafted in tonight's draft. In addition to that, you also have the NBA playoffs going on. These are 2 big-time events, and it's going to be tough for me because I have to watch my pals. They need to get Game 6. We need to force a Game 7. We're in the blender right now, so we need to make sure that we go crazy on that, right? And make sure you're checking out Locked On Pelicans, and it's an absolutely great show. Jake Madison has been doing his thing through this playoff run, and it's really fun back half of the season. So NBA playoffs is covered. NFL drafts are covered. The MLB is covered. Your favorite Vegas casino games covered. They have all of that. So make sure you go to betonline.net because they are the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Every day, I really do appreciate it. It makes my day to know you're starting it off watching or listening to me. So thank you for that. Now, tonight, the NFL draft starts, and I need you to make sure that you're looking at the Locked On NFL YouTube page when it gets going, because local experts for everywhere are going to be coming to talk on the show. You're not going to get this type of coverage on some news station. You're definitely not going to get it on this national network covering the draft. This is the best coverage that you can get. You see me, it's the first day of the draft, so I'm wearing my Saints shirt. I was going to be subtle about it, but if you know any Saints fans other than me, you know subtlety just is not a strong suit of ours. I got to let you know. I'm going to let you hear it. You know what I mean? Another thing that I'm going to let you hear is Gerald Huggins coming on and telling us what made Markquese Bell stand out from everybody else. Why is he the number one player on this list? I mean, he is my favorite. Okay, Gerald, now this is my personal favorite guy. Like I said before, we got on here, and this is your top guy on the list. What sets Markquese Bell apart from everybody else?
He's honestly just an overall better football player than most people in the draft. And that's just, let's call it spade to spade. I mean, end of the day, he's probably, numbers wise and athleticism wise, they'd have broke it down. I think he hit like a pretty high score on his athletic ranking. I saw athletic ranking that had him, I believe it was over 8, close to 9 or something like that. You saw what he did at the combine. You saw him on tape. He's just a really, really sound football player. He can do literally everything from the safety position. He can blitz. I believe he's a pretty good tackler. I haven't seen him miss too many. He has really good ball skills. He's tall, about 6'2". He's probably going, when he gets to the NFL, he's probably going to start pushing up to about the 220s. So he's going to be a really solid guy. I mean, he looks really solid now, as we can see. He's played multiple positions, not only safety, but we've seen him play all different types of positions. This guy made a name for himself. He's been doing this for a while. I mean, this guy was, honestly, coming out of high school, he's one of the best DBs in the country.
Yeah.
Things happen, whatever. Ended up at FAM, and then he still ended up being one of the best DBs in the country. So I don't see how it's going to just be all of a sudden this guy's been top DB in the country since he's a teenager, and all of a sudden he's about to just go to NFL and just no. I have nothing but he's like the guy I have to worry about with anything. I feel like you put him in any 32 teams could pick him, and that's why he had the most scouts at his pro day. So
yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that he is a sure tackler, because that was something I've heard a lot of people say. I didn't see it in my game. I was going to ask you about it, and I'm glad you covered that without even having to make it a talking point, But I did want to ask about, he played close to the line of scrimmage this year, and he's a very physical safety, I want to ask, how does he make his impact felt close to the line of scrimmage?
Well, one, like I said, he's a big guy. So actually, he was with draft HBCU players. We compared him to Kerry Rose. Now Kerry Rose is
that's the doctor guy. No, that's you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I don't.
That's
think
not his name.
I don't. Yeah, I know you talk about, but I don't think that's Kerry
Okay,
Rose.
that's not. It's not. But we're gonna look it up. Continue talking about his physical nature.
He's. I mean, so at FAMU they had him everywhere. Throwing him everywhere. They had him not sometimes. They had him in the box. Sometimes it looked like he was a will linebacker. He looked like he was a rover at times. Then he went to strong safety. Sometimes I seen him go back deep like he was a free safety. Like he come off the edge. He likes that. He likes that physicality. He loves to put his nose in it. He loves to hit. And he's made plenty of big hits. You look at his tape, he makes not only sound tackles, but he takes a guy, like Coach Nooks would say, when he likes to see, me and Coach Nooks we work with draft HBCU players. He's a DB guy. We also coach at the same high school. So he teaches his DBs, like, listen, once you tackle somebody, you wrap them up and you want them to feel you. You put your weight into them and you drive them into the dirt, and you can see Markquese Bell do that a lot. He's very technically sound. And once again, that high motor thing is beautiful. Beautiful. So not only is this guy wanting to just hit everything he sees, the chances of you outworking him to a spot, the chance of you just running through him and just getting through his tackle, the chances of you thinking you're just going to just fly away with a touchdown, no. Markquese Bell's going to chase you down. And we've seen that on every level, from his high school tape. And I believe he went to, what was it, Coffeyville? Did he go to Coffeyville?
Something like that. I don't know. You
Yeah,
know,
Coffeyville.
that's
Yeah,
your neck of the woods. I don't
yeah,
know how to
yeah.
pronounce
Listen,
all y'all stuff.
he went to Coffeyville. I can't remember the name, but it's even his tape from there.
It starts with a
Everything
C.
is translated. Yeah, it's been translation. Like, it's just, and I think, him playing some offensive side of the ball as I think he played quarterback and receiver too. So I believe that helps him too, even with just being on the line of scrimmage, because, well, I mean, he looked like the quarterback of the defense at FAMU to me, and FAMU had a really, really good defense to the FCS standards, and he was the centerpiece of that. You could not play a game against FAMU the past few years without realizing who this guy was and where he was on the field.
Okay. This is something that's kind of irked me, and I have my theory about it. But basically, a lot of people call him a box safety. And I think it's because he played so close to the line of scrimmage this year. But if you look back at the 2019 tape, he led the MEAC in interceptions. So take me back 2 years, well, I guess 3 years at this point, with the pandemic and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see from him in coverage?
He can play man and he can play zone. I think he's a really good man coverage corner and safety. We saw it when I was breaking down the practice film. Actually, Coach Nooks broke it down as well. We were watching the USPA Bowl, and man, NFLPA Bowl. Gee, that's a USPA. Wow,
It's cool. I was gonna let you rock out with it. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna let you rock out with the USPA.
Oh my God!
Look,
all right,
look, we
wow.
good. We good. Take you back with the USPA, man.
Right. Never wearing that ever again. Okay, so NFLPA Bowl, they lined him up at corner in the game and during practice, and you can see on tape he has really good ball skills as well. On top of him being able to play man coverage, and then when he's at high safety, when he has to play single high, he's pretty good in deep coverage as well. So I've seen him drop back into cover 3. I've seen him drop back into cover 2, cover 1, 4, 6. I've seen him drop back into many different coverages. He seems so comfortable doing it. And then when you have this heat-seeking missile to go a little off of the pass, and you have this heat-seeking missile coming from 12 yards back, Lord of mercy. He's about to, that's why a lot of these big hits come. So I like to see him in the box, but that older tape where he wasn't in the box as much, he was still coming down from a further distance and laying the wood on people. So I like it. I personally I could play him at free. I could play him at strong. That's why he's one of my favorites, because he literally could play maybe 6 positions on the field. Maybe, yeah. I'd say he could play about 6 positions thoroughly on the field. Big nickel, corner. Then he could play both safety positions. Then he might be able to be like a small, if they go to a smaller package where they want to just have him as like in the box, like maybe a 4-down lineman, maybe a 3-down lineman with like a bunch of DBs, and they want him to just be center field or be right there in the middle linebacker spot, they could put him there. That's how confident I am this guy could just play any position they put him at, any team, and he'll just be the guy that pops out on the screen.
I've been trying to explain that Markquese Bell is not just a box safety. He's really good as far as stopping the run, and he has a lot of experience in the back end as well. Shout out to Coach G for coming on here and explaining it way more eloquently and much more like a scout than I could ever do. We always appreciate that. And going forward, we're going to be talking about his fit in the NFL, all of that versatility. How will you package it to use it the right way? And he has a really interesting answer for that one. Versatility is great. It's a phenomenal attribute to have, and it can make you fit in a lot of places, like you're saying. However, everybody has a place to which they fit best. If you're trying to maximize his skill set, what role would you put Markquese Bell in?
Man, so think of, let's be real. I think role. I'm not gonna lie. I think that I know they knock him for this box safety thing, but he can be one of the best box safeties in the NFL. And I'm not talking about that's all he'll do, but end of the day, even Honey Badger plays in the box, but he also can play deep, and that's what Bell would do. Bell can play both. That's why it's like schematically, he fits a lot of teams. Schematically, he fits a lot of teams. Like I think he'll mesh well into a scheme that likes to play a lot of man, but I could see him playing in a lot of zone blitzing schemes where he could just come from wherever on the field they put him and they tell him to rush. He might end up being one of those DBs that get a bunch of sacks. I forgot who was it that had, was it
Adams?
It was Abrams?
Okay, I thought you were talking about Adams. Jamal Adams?
I said, no. Is it Jamal Adams?
Yeah, it's Adams. Look, we're terrible with names. It was Myron Rolle for the record. It wasn't no Kerry Rose. That was the guy. We're not doing a good job with names today, but but it's okay because I knew who you were talking about. The same way I knew that you was walking around rocking USPA. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Ralph guy myself. I'm a Chaps guy. I'm a Chaps guy, to be honest.
But end of the day, he has a good frame.
Yeah, he's a great player.
He has a great play, has a good frame, and he can play. Like I said, I'm gonna reiterate, he can play multiple positions. And I just think that you don't want to put him, no pun intended, put him in a box, because if you put him in a box, not the box, you put him in a box, you're not gonna get your full worth with him. He has to. Yeah. He wants to. I feel like he wants to play whatever. I mean, I feel like you throw him on special teams, he might go Pro Bowl with special teams his rookie year. That's just the kind of guy he is. He's just that kind of dude on the field.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take. The sense of to maximize his skill set, you wouldn't put him in one place. You would put him in multiple places so you can get everything. That wasn't one that I expected you to say, but I actually really enjoyed it. Now, one of the things that was impressive to me was you look at the big games throughout FAMU's season this year, and he shows up every time, multiple double-digit tackles games. And in most of those games, they were big profile games, whether it was Bethune-Cookman or whether it was the FCS playoff game. How do you look at a player who shows up big, or excuse me, how do you look at a player's stock who shows up big in big time moments?
End of the day, that's the formula. When you come from a historically black college and university, you have to show up in the games that everybody's watching. And guess what? Everybody was so hyped up about that FAMU versus Jackson State game. And let's be real, he was the best player on the field. I mean, can I call it what it is? He was the best player on the field. He wasn't missing tackles. He was making plays in the backfield. He was bringing the person down without a struggle. Played good defense in the back end. I loved it. Like, I knew about Markquese Bell a couple years ago, but that was like this dude is like, it all came together. I mean, it was already there, but then it was just like, oh my God, the 2019, and then with him, all the interceptions came together. And then you already had this great run stopper too. Man, it was a sight to see. And then even versus, I think it was Southeastern Louisiana. Even I tried that game just it
got out of hand quick, but he was active.
But he did his thing. So and they kept calling his name, even when they were losing. Even when the family was like losing, the name they wanted to call all the time was Markquese Bell. Markquese Bell. And then as soon as the season ended, that's the only name you kept hearing, that name, Markquese Bell, Markquese Bell, Markquese Bell, Markquese Bell, Markquese Bell. And for people that didn't know who he was, well, it didn't take long to find out, like, oh, wow, fam, you may have like a top, you could argue, I say the top 5 DB, FBS, FCS, I'm sorry, safety, FBS, FCS, whatever. I'm going that far. But I think realistically, you could range him at 10 to 15. Top 10 to 15 safety between the FCS and the FBS. But I'm going to lean on the side of I like versatility. So I'm automatically going to put you higher than the guy that just plays corner on the left side or the corner on the right side, or he only plays free safety. This guy is honestly probably one of the better tacklers, and he's not horrible in coverage, and he plays multiple positions. So it's going to be hard for me to say he's not a top 5 or at least top 10 safety, let alone say he's not a bottom. He's not a less than the top 15 DB to me.
Okay.
So I know other people probably, whatever, the kid from Notre Dame is clear cut the guy that everybody loves.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Then, Sauce Garner, he's the DB, he's a corner that everybody loves. I'm not going to get into the whole Stingley Garner thing. But anyway, I'm not doing that. We all know Stingley's better. But so But when it comes back to Bell, yes, but he is. Yeah,
My God.
we're here. Yeah, I'm not crazy. Like Stingley was gonna go number 1 overall if after his freshman year if he could have. Like let's not. But anyway, so Bell,
Listen to it.
yes,
Here.
Bell is, and like we're talking about Bell. May or less, he may be. God, I mean, I can't predict the round, maybe, but he definitely might be the first HBCU player going.
There we go. Markquese Bell, the first HBCU player getting drafted in the 2022 draft. You heard it right here first from Gerald Huggins. It's been 2.5 months, my guy. I appreciate you not just for today, but for the past 10 weeks in this journey that we have been going on, counting down our top 10 draft eligible HBCU player list. You my guy, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, brother, listen, it's been a pleasure, and woo, we could either look really good or really crazy by the end of this week, based on who. But listen, I'm very confident. Like, listen, the guys that, and just to put it out there, not to toot my own horn a little bit, but the greatest defensive back, head coach of Jackson State, HBCU advocate,
He told me about this before the show.
Yeah. He
let me hear it.
I'm just saying, this before he dropped his list or whatever. But we have similar. Everybody I have on my list, if I'm not mistaken, is on his. Jerry Garner, Marquis McClain, all of them. So if they all get that look that they deserve, man, somebody need to be.
We're gonna end it there. Somebody. All right, man. You take care, G.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro.
There we go. 2.5 months, 10 weeks, 10 players, counting from 10 to 1. And we culminated with Markquese Bell, my personal favorite player from the HBCU in this draft. And on Coach G's list, he is the top player from an HBCU in this year's draft. I cannot wait. The draft is today. Tomorrow's episode, we are going to be talking to Michael Badajo, a prospect that I told you earlier in today's episode, I think will be getting drafted. There's a lot of buzz around him. So let's hear how he felt about what he did on the field, some of the things he's doing off the field, and also the draft, because he's never been through this before. How is he feeling about this draft cycle? That's why you need to make us your first listen of the day, not just tomorrow, but every day after as well. And in the meantime, in between time, make sure that you're making Locked On NFL Draft your second listen of the day, because you need to have yourself educated for everything that's going on rounds 1 through 7. I'm giving you the HBCU players. They're giving you everything else. It's a perfect pair. All right. And then if you want to catch me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.